Hello everyone, and thanks for hanging out with us for the Behind the Numbers Weekly Listen, an eMarketer podcast made possible by Mountain. This is the Friday show that reviews the most I'm freaking out media news stories of the week. I'm your host Marcus Johnson. In today's show, what is the next big AR experience?
I think that we're moving so quickly to the element of helping consumers not just try things on with augmented reality, but then now purchase products. But again, I think there's so much more that brands can do on the brand awareness side with this.
Self-service retail.
All of the grocery stores that I frequent, slowly but surely a day comes where they take out half those registers and bring in the self-checkout. And it doesn't seem to deter people from coming to the store.
The podcast hit problem.
You know, what happens when there's a huge boom in one type of content? And I think that's naturally going to cause, a fragmentation in listening, and people are going to sort of scatter to their favorite shows because there's just so many new shows that have become available over the last few years.
A delivery drone milestone, some uncommon knowledge about consumer choice, and robot referees. All right, folks, join me for this episode. We have three people. Let's meet them. We start with one of our analysts who's on the retail and e-commerce team. You know him as Blake Droesch.
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
Hey, chap. We're also joined by one of our directors of forecasting. It's Oscar Orozco.
Happy to be on, Marcus.
Hey, buddy. And finally, we have one of our senior forecasting analysts. It's Peter Vahle.
Hey, thanks for having me, Marcus.
Hey, friend. All right, that's who we've got joining me today. But what do we have in store for you? Well, 4 segments as per usual. We start with the story of the week. What is the next big AR experience? We'll try and figure that out. We then move to the game of the week. What's the point? Where our 3 contestants will try to give us the best takeaways they possibly can from each of the 4 stories we have for you. And then we will crown a champion with an imaginary championship belt. We then move to uncommon knowledge, relatively newish segments where we're going to talk about some unpopular opinions, and then finally dinner party data where we talk about things we just recently learned that is interesting. Let's start with the story of the week. The next big AR experience. Pinterest will let you use AR to preview furniture from Walmart, West Elm, and more, writes Mitchell Clark of The Verge. This new try-on for home decor feature is a new addition to its app, letting you see furniture in your house using augmented reality, or AR. Mr. Clark notes that Pinterest says you'll be able to use its lens camera to try out over 80,000 pieces of furniture from shoppable pins. If you like what you see, you'll be able to follow a link to the retailer's website where you can buy. The issue here, gents, is that this isn't new. IKEA's app has let you drop virtual furniture into your house since 2013. That's somehow nearly 10 years ago. So reaction to this news from Pinterest, and then kind of following on from that, is this as good as it gets for augmented reality and in terms of experiences, or is something magnificent just around the corner?
But I think in terms of shopping, this is sort of the use case, but there hasn't really been a technological advancement that really makes this use case more palatable to a wide audience. I mean, there's a very, very slim margin of people who have tried AR who actually find it very satisfactory in terms of helping plan out, how a clothes might look, or a pair of glasses, or a piece of furniture. But when you look at the data that we track, there's really, when you look at the users, which is small, it's only about 15% of respondents to surveys have ever used AR to shop. A really, really slim margin will say that they use it regularly, which indicates that there's a relatively low level of satisfaction, even with these use cases. But is there going to be a sort of like a new use case that nobody's ever thought of before for AR? I don't really see that happening.
Mm-hmm. And that data, Blake, I believe it's pretty much all young people. 0 older people use this type of technology for shopping.
I will say a quick plug to the forecasting team. We're actually in the coming weeks about to publish a new number on retail AR use, so look out for that. Yeah, it should be exciting, which I think you will also talk about in articles and in written content. So yeah, look out for that, listeners. But I agree with everything Blake's saying. I mean, in 2020, Tim Cook called AR the next big thing. I do think a bit about the metaverse and the endless possibilities. I do think that there's more there that we might not be able to imagine quite yet. So maybe I sound a bit more excited than Blake on that end. I would bring it back to the advertising side as well. I think that we're moving so quickly to the element of helping consumers not just try things on with augmented reality, but then now purchase products. But again, back to the advertising situation, I think there's so much more that brands can do on the brand awareness side with this. And there was an example, Marcus, that you provided with Ford and how they were connecting mainly probably with Gen Zers on TikTok. But I think there's so much more that brands can do on the advertising side that I am excited about the AR use cases, and not just for retail. I mean, I was going to talk about travel as well, but there are other industries that it could move into.
Yeah, this does seem to make a lot of sense for Pinterest. A few reasons why. Number one, David Cohen of Adweek was noting that Pinterest said home decor is the top category on its platform, with 9 out of 10 weekly visitors seeking inspiration in their path to purchase within the home category. So it fits well into what Pinterest users look at on the platform or look for. Secondly, this is a relatively big step for Pinterest because Try On for home decor is rolling out across more than 80,000 shoppable pins versus the 14,000 shoppable pins where its Try On beauty experience is available. So it's a bigger push into this. And then finally, this is from Pinterest Senior VP of Engineering, Jeremy King, saying, how often do you buy every single thing in your bedroom or living room from a single supplier? Pinterest is a great place to go if you don't know what you want. IKEA has had this, and you could argue that people furnish their entire homes with IKEA furniture, but there's a good chance that people have different things from different places. And if Pinterest can be that central hub, then they're going to benefit from that. Peter, where do you land on this?
I'm going back and forth a bit in my head here. I think that AR, means really different things depending on, how we're talking about it, whether it's a Snapchat filter or something like what Oscar mentioned where, Ford's doing a campaign on TikTok really to get the word out and, have a fun little brand awareness campaign. But when you're talking about furniture and clothes and getting people to consider purchasing one of your items and you're sort of bringing them down the funnel by using AR and the e-commerce experience, that's very different. And I think that is a practical use case to making someone go from the inspired phase to the, okay, I have some more information and detail that would actually convert me to buy this item. So I think that there is a lot of potential, especially in furniture. I know we're talking about Pinterest and some of the deals they have with brands are furniture brands. But I don't use this myself. I mean, I think that they still haven't solved the feel, sort of how does this feel? Does it feel cheap? And some of those things that you can really only get if you're in store and you look at it in person. So that's the big barrier. And then with the clothes, another really popular thing, the visual piece is kind of nailed. Companies are doing it really well, but how does it actually fit on me? How does it feel? That's a barrier that's really hard to overcome.
Yeah. You imagine this is just going to be one step in the purchase path, and it's hard to go from seeing this thing in your home or seeing what it looks like on you to I'll buy it straight away. Maybe there are more steps, and maybe this is just something that pushes people or nudges people closer to the purchase. Pinterest said that users 5 times more likely to purchase from try-on enabled pins than standard pins. I just think the numbers are a bit misleading. So we're estimating over 100 million Americans will use augmented reality this year. That's a third of internet users. But half are using it to add kind of bunny ears to their face for a social media post. 50 million will use AR on social networks. And Carlo Cavalloni, global co-chief creative officer at advertising agency 72 and Sunny, was saying companies are beginning to expand the use of AR beyond brand awareness marketing efforts and into facilitating sales. I just don't see it. I think that there might be a lot of people who have tried AR because of Snapchat, but realistically, the industry thinks it's way further along than it actually is, at least at the consumer level.
And I think the question now is, will AR be eclipsed by VR before AR really has its moment to shine?
Right. Yeah, I mean, if Apple has anything to say about it, then no, because they're supposed to be bringing out some AR glasses at some point in the next couple of years. But yeah, they're going to have to hurry to get in before, the VR and the metaverse world takes off and people kind of forget about the potential of AR. Snap, I mean, they're still very interested. Recently rolled out additional features to the AR experience on Snapchat, bringing up-to-date product information like in-stock availability to its shopping lenses, a tool that lets people virtually try on makeup, sneakers, things like that. There was one fascinating number from Artillery Intelligence. They say worldwide mobile AR revenue from advertising expected to balloon to 26 billion by 2025. It was 7 billion in 2020. So from 7 to 26 in that 5-year stretch, 2020 to 2025. That's from Artillery Intelligence. And that is all we've got time for the story of the week. It's time now for the game of the week. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, Mountain. Mountain is taking everything you love about paid search and social advertising and bringing it to the TV screen. Mountain Performance TV is the world's first and only connected TV software platform that makes television advertising as easy as launching campaigns on paid search and social. Their self-service platform makes it easy to choose your own audience, set your budget and goal, and see immediate results. Visit mountain.com to learn more. Folks, we are of course back. It's time now for the game of the week. Today's game, what is the point? Where I read out 4 stories and have contestants, Peter, Blake and Oscar, tell us what they think is the main takeaway of the story. Okay answers get 1 point, good answers get 2, and answers that give you the same feeling as when the Rams make the Super Bowl. Any Rams fans? Just me. Answers that leave you with that feeling, they get you 3 points. I'm surprised no one's congratulated me on that. That's a bit of a shame. But whatever. Each person gets 20 seconds to answer before they hear this. Whoever has the most points wins and gets the last word. No one? No one wants a few extra points?
I'm a Niners fan, Marcus.
Oh, so, pass on that as well.
Yeah,
I know you are.
Not going to congratulate you on
Oscar.
that win.
I'm surprised you didn't say anything sooner. Okay. Let's start with Oscar, top of my screen. Self-service retail. The retail world is prepping for a future with fewer human workers and more technology involved in selling us stuff, writes Jennifer A. Kingson of Axios. She's talking about self-checkout, just walk out cashierless technology, click and collect, etc. Initiatives where you are doing more of the heavy lifting yourself. While 72% of retail sales are still expected to take place in brick and mortar stores in 2024, that's according to Forrester Research, merchants are busy installing interactive signage with QR codes, perhaps, or smart price tags, and remote checkout systems that point to a very different customer experience, Miss Kingson notes. Oscar, self-service retail, what's the point?
Well, I believe in it. I mean, I think we're already seeing it in convenience stores and drugstores and in places like this. We spoke about it recently on the program, just what the future of a brick and mortar location is going to look like. And it's mainly going to be about self-service checkout and, bigger spaces for returns and returning products and things like this. So I think there are so many indicators that are showing that retail is moving in that direction, not just the growth of e-commerce, but the growth of and popularity of different types of payment options, whether it's QR codes or contactless payment. I think that this is something that is still in its infancy, but it'll continue to really grow and it's going to come on quicker than people expect.
Peter.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of as much information as possible at the shelf when I'm shopping. You know, I'm the type of person who wants to go in and do price comparisons and see, what the customer reviews are. The customer reviews is probably, the most important thing if it's a big item purchase. I'm not talking about when I'm going to buy an avocado from the grocery store, obviously. So I think that what is important for retailers to consider is just, do you want to be in the business of hyper convenience, or do you want to be in the business of, interesting experience with great customer service? And I think that will, be different by retailer, but I think just being intentional with what kind of in-store experience you want will go a long way.
Peter, are you going to a grocery store to buy one solitary avocado?
That's probably the one item I would only spearfish on a trip, because you need to get it. You need to get it right at the right time.
Man makes good points. Blake.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on Peter's comment, sometimes the grocery store you're in doesn't have any ripe avocados, so you need to go to a secondary location to procure the single ripe avocado.
You get me, Blake.
But anyways, as someone who thrives on very, very limited human interaction, I'm a big fan of self-checkout, because the fewer people I have to interact with on a daily basis, the better. But it's really not an option for the consumer at this point, because it's more cost effective to have automated checkout. And all of the grocery stores that I frequent, slowly but surely a day comes where they take out half those registers and bring in the self-checkout. And it doesn't seem to deter people from coming to the store. I think customer loyalty is gained at other points during the shopping experience. So I do think it is the future, and it really is only a matter of time before it's all automated.
Yeah, one thing from this article from Jennifer A. Kingston from Axios that jumped out to me, Danish shopping technology company Zlide, with two eyes, produces a digital fob that attaches to a garment on a rack in a store. Using the Zlide app, you can see the price, Peter, to your point about information, you can see the price, product information, and videos. You can scan the fob to check out on the spot through Apple Pay, no salesperson needed, and you get a digital receipt. The Zlide fob unlocks from the garment after you paid for it, so you can use your phone to unlock the fob, and then you drop it in a nearby box on your way out. Zlide's system is being used in Denmark by H&M Group's weekday stores. CTO and co-founder of Zlide, Nikolai Brix Lindholm, notes that what we can actually learn now is who is coming into the store, what they're interacting with, what the age split is, or the gender split of the store. So yeah, one huge element here could be data. Move to our second round. We start with Peter. The podcast hit problem. Podcasting hasn't produced a new hit in years, aside from Behind the Numbers. I'm of course kidding. We're not that big. The average podcast in the top 10 is more than 7 years old, according to Edison Research, writes Lucas Shaw of Bloomberg. He's, of course, talking about the Joe Rogan Experience, This American Life, and Stuff You Know. These are podcasts that have been around for a long time, but still remain in the top 10 of all-time podcasts in terms of listens. There are certainly lots to choose from. Spotify alone has over 3 million podcasts on its platform. Peter, the podcast hit problem, what's the point?
I don't see this as an issue for the industry at all. The number of podcast listeners and the time spent listening to podcasts keeps increasing. According to our forecast, there will be 125 million podcast listeners this year. That's 42% of internet users. I think that this story is just explaining, what happens when there's a huge boom in one type of content. And I think that's naturally going to cause a fragmentation in listening, and people are going to sort of scatter to their favorite shows because there's just so many new shows that have become available over the last few years. So, podcasts are also really different in that they don't go viral easily. They're kind of these ongoing shows. They don't have a finite beginning and end, and they're not visual, so they don't really go viral on social media the way that other popular content does. This isn't a problem.
Great answer, but delay of game on Peter, 15-yard penalty, it means nothing. But it also means something. Blake.
Yeah, I completely agree with Peter for two reasons. One, podcasts are so niche that certain audiences can gravitate to certain genres, and there doesn't need to be a hit necessarily. And second of all, podcast shows have a way longer shelf life than, let's say, like TV shows, for instance. So HBO, needs to have a hit show every 6 or so years because that's generally the length of a season. Whereas podcast shows have gone on for 10 plus years and are still very, very popular. So it doesn't necessarily require a new recurring hit for podcast providers in order to maintain an audience.
Oscar.
I agree with the guys here. There was one thing I wanted to hone in on. The articles mentioned something about learning more from radio. I couldn't disagree more. I think that podcasts do need to, look at the VOD landscape and do as much as they can to up their level in terms of discoverability. I think that is a problem, and I do think there are too many. We're talking millions of podcasts out there that can be a problem, and it is, to be frank. But I agree that it's not an issue for now. The other thing I would say is that podcasters have to do more more on the media side, and it needs, not just in terms of paid media, but owned and earned media as well. Peter spoke about this earlier and mentioned the fact that there isn't as much of this viral nature to the podcast, and that needs to be both paid for and earned, and we're not seeing enough of that yet, and podcasts at some point need to get to that point.
All right, another long answer from Oscar this time. So another delay of game.
10
The
yards.
flag gets thrown. 15-yard penalty.
What's with these guys today, Marcus?
I don't know what's going on. No rules. There's no rules. All right, we move on to our third round. We start with Blake. The NFL's 2021 ratings. The NFL ratings rose 10% this past 2021 season, writes Joe Flynn to the Wall Street Journal. That makes them the best since 2015, according to Nielsen data. The average audience for regular season games was just over 17 million viewers versus the 15.6 million in the 2020 regular season. These figures taking into consideration digital as well as linear traditional TV viewership as well. Blake, the NFL's 2021 ratings, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. In fact, maybe a little underwhelming that it's only a 10% increase from the 2020 season, which was really dismal when you consider how there were empty stadiums and all of these COVID issues. So that little bump in ratings doesn't really solve any of the NFL's concerns or any sporting league's concerns about how eyeballs are drifting away from these sports. And I would say probably even a negative thing that the growth is only 10% coming off 2020.
Oscar.
The data point that jumped out at me was the 16% growth in viewership numbers for Thursday night games. That kind of surprised me, but I think it does speak to the fact that the NFL is doing the right thing by having games on kind of off nights. I would not be surprised if they move into Tuesday, Friday nights and start spreading out the weekly schedule, out to 4 or 5 nights a week. And just to say, Amazon has the rights next year for Thursday night games. It seems like they made the right decision there.
Oh, for crying out loud. Oh, what is happening? Bloody bell. Peter.
So it seems like this is not just an NFL story, but also a broader live sports story. According to our live sports viewers forecast, there was a almost 2% drop in viewers in 2020, and then a rebound of 3.4% growth in 2021. So we're sort of showing that there was this recovery in 2021 for the larger sports landscape. But yeah, the other thing that I just thought was really interesting in the article was that it said that there's not this same demand for news in 2021 that there was in 2020 with the whole election cycle and Trump dominating media. So the NFL didn't have to compete with the same amount of news last year.
Two things that jumped out to me. One was a record 34 games decided on the final play, according to the NFL. And also 2/3 of all games were competitive in the fourth quarter. I imagine they're talking about a rough point differential. I don't know what the point differential here was, but they said competitive. And then second point was the Cowboys, America's so-called team. Miss me with that. Who came up with that? So they haven't won in like 1,000 years, but they were featured in 5 out of 10 of the most watched games this past season, including a Thanksgiving matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders that averaged nearly 41 million viewers and was the biggest game of the season in terms of ratings. What's going on? How do we feel about the Cowboys being America's team? Are we okay with that, or is it just Cowboys people?
It aggravates me. Yeah, it's terrible.
It's infuriating. Why'd America's team be the worst team? Why would that be?
But it makes the disappointment
Patriots
sting a little bit more, which as non-Cowboys fans is kind of cool. It's like America's team and so many people like them, but they're just so bad every year. So I guess from like a hating perspective, gives haters momentum.
Yeah.
Did they just start calling themselves America's favorite team?
Probably.
And it just caught on? Like any pizzeria can put a sign in the window that says world's best pizza.
But I think they probably do have the most fans still. So that's probably where it comes from. The most number of fans.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking of New England because it captures so many different states. I don't know what the total number of fans would be.
Yeah, very low dense population in
okay
that area.
At least it's a good team, and they're called the Patriot. I don't want to talk about it. All right, let's move to our final round. We start with Oscar, a delivery drone milestone. Question mark. In November 2021, Worth Sparkman of Axios wrote that drones shaped like mini planes can now drop packages of 4 pounds or less in customers' yards when they order from a Walmart neighborhood market in Northwest Arkansas. Walmart partnered with drone maker Zipline for this, operating from a 25-foot takeoff and landing platform behind a neighborhood market in rural Pea Ridge, Arkansas. Zipline says it can get customers their items within 30 minutes of an order being placed. The drone drops the package using a biodegradable parachute and can consistently land a package in an area the size of 2 parking lots. Oscar, a delivery drone milestone, what's the point?
Yeah, there are a lot of issues with this for me. First of all, I mean, how is this going to work in urban settings? You know, and we just looking at some census data recently, both suburban and urban, populations are about 80% of the U.S. population. So I just don't see how that'll work. Along with the second thing, which is the FDA permits flights within limited airspace. I don't even know what that means, and only during daylight. So there are a lot of issues with this. I don't really see how this will work long term. I've said it before on the program. I think we need like mini little drone delivery airports or airfields. You know, that'll work. I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting idea.
Yeah.
Peter.
Yeah, I'm not buying that this is anything more than like a cool technology and application, but there's apparently negotiations with Walmart and the FAA to expand to more customers in Northwest Arkansas. But even that seems like there's, no progress. So if they're having trouble getting to expand in Northwest Arkansas, it just seems like, it's so far away that it's probably not realistic for any retailers to even start considering it.
Blake.
Yeah, I think with automated delivery, there are going to be several steps in between what we're dealing with now and drones. So things like driverless cars or even like robot deliveries that are going to be able to, go into an apartment building and retrieve packages. These are all things that are actually going to become a reality or have a chance of becoming a reality before drone delivery for all of the things that have just been stated. So I don't think we're really on the precipice of that at all, even though I am a believer in automated delivery being actually the future.
Well, yeah, Deloitte thinks it's the future, but way into the future. They think delivery by drone will become a $115 billion industry by 2035. Of course, they're talking about just drones, not just any automated delivery like Blake was. Zipline COO Liam O'Connor told Axios it could launch a drone every 90 seconds, potentially making hundreds of deliveries a day. And they will begin delivering prescription medicines to patients' homes in a suburb of Charlotte, North Carolina this year. So very, very contained experiments at this point. That's all we've got time for the game of the week. This week's winner. A drum roll. Blake is this week's winner of the game of the week because, yes, sometimes you do need to go to a second store to find the right avocado.
I knew that was going to put me over the edge. That was
a
gonna
winner.
be it.
Yeah. Congratulations to Blake. He gets the championship belt and the last word.
Well, I'm glad that I won this week because it gives me the chance to plug my report, which came out this week. We published our first ever digital grocery features benchmark. So basically, we take a look at 30 features and we ran a survey of U.S. grocery buyers to see which features within digital grocery apps were most important to them. And then we looked at 10 of the key players in the digital grocery space, and we rank them according to which features they offered and weighted against, obviously, which of these features were most in demand. So I will tease out that at the end of the day, Instacart came in the number one spot, but you will have to read the report to see where the other players landed.
Love a cliffhanger. Very nice. All right, check that out if you're a pro subscriber. It's called what, Blake?
It's called the U.S. Digital Grocery Features Benchmark 2022.
Very nice. Very nice indeed. Congratulations to Blake. He won this week's Game of the Week. It's time now for Uncommon Knowledge. Welcome to a segment called Uncommon Knowledge, where we offer up some unpopular or atypical opinions about things. We start with a few unpopular opinions about everyday things and then ask one of our analysts for an unpopular opinion that they've been thinking about related to the media world. It's inspired by BBC Radio 1's Unpopular Opinion feature. We'll first take an unpopular opinion from that BBC Radio 1 show, then one from the internet, and then one from one of our analysts. We start with an unpopular opinion from the show, from BBC Radio 1. And one of them is, music festivals are boring and pointless. You end up miles away from the music and everyone's just standing there. Thoughts?
I totally agree with this. Maybe the younger me would disagree and would be more open to standing out in a field for 8 hours with no access to a bathroom and basically no shade. But yeah, I think you'd have to put me in some really, really ideal VIP conditions to attend a music festival these days. Plus, when I look at the lineups for music festivals, it's really depressing because it makes me feel really old. I don't recognize, like, other than the headliners, I don't recognize anybody below the second line of the lineups, and it's just really sad.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. Firefly was a great show. Kings of Leon played. It was amazing. Florence and the Machine actually played as well. That was great. But apart from that, the rest of the ones I've been to have been rubbish. All right. No other thoughts. I'll move on. One from the internet. Greeting cards, this is an unpopular opinion from the internet. Greeting cards are meaningless. You have no reason to send cards in 2020. They're a complete waste of trees.
Marcus, I don't want to get on my soapbox about, whoever's saying it's a complete waste of trees. I'm sure that there's some other not so environmentally friendly activities that are going on that are so much more damaging than sending a card or two. I mean,
the person who wrote this may have gone on a long haul 12-hour flight around the world. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. I think that if you get a personal card or you send someone a personal card, that's a sort of nice special thing. Someone took their time out of the day to send you that. I think maybe it's just me. I appreciate that. I think it's a worthwhile thing to keep alive when literally 99% of our lives, for a lot of us, are now digital. Why not keep something physical?
Yeah, I agree. I would also add the card itself isn't enough, but if put a little bit of thought into it and write a nice message along with the card, yeah, that's super nice. No, I disagree with that. I love greeting cards and birthday cards and all these other cards. They're great.
Did you guys, when I was younger, with my friends, we would just, when we didn't have any money, we would just like buy a card and put like a £10 note in it, and that would be your gift to someone. And then that same £10 note would basically just get circulated through the group. It's a complete waste of time. But at least we did something. All right, let's move to our final unpopular opinion. It comes from one of our panel. It comes from Peter this week. And Peter, yours is centering around consumers and this idea that they want total choice and control over the media they consume. Talk to us.
Yeah, so I think that there is this myth that, an on-demand, hyper-personalized media model is going to be the key to the future. We've seen all of these different SVOD services like Disney Plus and Netflix, and, the list goes on, take over and really become the status quo. Likewise, on the audio side, you have these on-demand apps like Spotify, Apple Music, etc., that have taken over. And I think that there is something missing from that experience, when you compare each medium to its traditional counterpart. So the SVOD compared to traditional cable, these on-demand audio services to traditional radio. The main difference being that with some of the traditional media, you could just turn it on and people would give you entertainment. You would have channels to flip through and there would be programs scheduled and you could just watch them. Or the radio would have, a playlist or a set list that you would listen to and enjoy. And I think that there's a happy medium between that and between opening up an app and idling for however long, arguing about what you're going to pick or being like, what is the exact thing to match my exact mood in this exact moment? And it's really, really hard to figure out what to put on. So there's a number of reasons that I think that, the future will be this mix of you can really get curated entertainment and you can have so many choices. But it needs to be balanced with sort of a lean back experience of, you don't have to think. You just turn it on and they give you something. I think Netflix added that shuffle button where you can play shuffle and it will just start playing anything randomly. And I think that's, kind of an indicator that they probably realize that there is demand for, just having a more passive experience.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on this. I think that I mean, I use the Spotify radio all the time now. I'll just pick a band and go to their radio playlist and just roll through that. And thinking about something like video, like a SVOD service and Netflix, for example, yeah, it would be nice if they just curated a list of, here's 10 movies for the weekend or 10 movies for this particular night for Friday. And I would just go through those 10. I mean, imagine going to the cinema, imagine going to the movie theater and you get there and instead of like 10 movies you can pick from, they go, oh, you can choose anything you bloody want. You'd be standing in the lobby for hours. So I do think there's something to be said for giving people a limited, more curated experience, but none of this a la carte, pick exactly what you want all the time stuff.
And yeah, the last thing that I want to hear what Blake and Oscar think too, but yeah, Marcus, I agree. And the example I always think of is, remember when you watch cable and a movie comes on and you're like, oh, great, I'm going to sit and watch this movie for an hour and a half. But if you had the choice to select that DVD from your collection and put it in, you would never in the world pick it. But because it happened to come up on cable, you're like, oh, this is such a great movie. I didn't have to use any brain power to pick it, and I'm going to enjoy the hell out of it. It's this really interesting psychological phenomenon.
Watched Mrs. Doubtfire the other day.
Great movie.
So good.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, Peter. I think you have the right mentality on this. I think, you went back to the shuffle feature from Netflix, and I do think Netflix always seems to be at the forefront of these features that really do seem to speak to how consumers are picking and choosing and watching this content. I think YouTube has that as a part of, it's kind of part of their structure already, that discoverability aspect. It's a little bit better for that. But I agree with you. I think that's the way of the future. I think there are platforms that are really lacking that. HBO, for example, potentially because they do still have the cable channel that people can kind of just click onto and find things as they go. But other platforms need to catch up there, because I do think that mix is the way of the future.
Yeah, this segment is supposed to be about unpopular opinions. We just end up agreeing all the time with what our analysts are saying, but it's a great point. It's tough to disagree with you on that one, mate. All right, so we've got time for uncommon knowledge. It's time now for dinner party data. This is the part of the show where we tell you about the most interesting thing that we've learned this week. We start with Blake because he won the game of the week. Blake, what have you got for us?
So YouGov America ran a survey that asked, imagine you were spending the weekend alone at home. About how long would it take for you to feel bored if you didn't have access to a cell phone or the internet? So it's very surprising that the most popular answer, 28%, said I wouldn't get bored without a cell phone or the internet, which is quite a large number of people who are willing to lie on surveys. So it just, makes me just trust people less. But 11% said that it'd be less than 30 minutes. 14% said between 30 minutes and 2 hours. And then 13% said between 2 and 4 hours. So it was actually like pretty evenly split between like literally less than 30 minutes and people who think they could last like up to a day. But then there's like this whole section of liars who think that they just wouldn't get bored at all. Even though I wouldn't get bored if I had like books or like like DVDs or something, I'd be fine. Or even just like CDs. I think I'd be able to make it. But everybody else is a liar.
Any age splits on that?
That would be really interesting to look at, but they did not. They didn't break it out at all.
All right.
But Blake, you're also the guy that can't go to music festivals or have fun at them. So I don't know.
Yeah, but there are people at music festivals. I would be just alone in this scenario. I'd be fine. Thrive.
Have you guys tried as an exercise just to turn your phone off, for a bit, for an hour, for anything? Do you guys?
No, people think you're dead.
Well, that's the thing. I do it sometimes. I'm like, shut my phone off for an hour, see what happens. They say it's good for your phone's longevity and for the technology. So, but that's not why I do it. So I'll do it sometimes, and 2 minutes later, like there's pressing information that I need to look up, and then the phone immediately gets turned back on. So yeah, Blake, you're right. Those people are all liars.
No, but I do that sometimes, and the only way that you'll be able to get by, you're right, is that you need to literally keep like a pen and paper next to you, and you'll like at the end of an hour there'll be like 6 things written down on this piece of paper that you need to Google.
Yeah,
because
the attention deficit is just insane.
It's ridiculous, and we're just so used to being able to have answers to our questions immediately that once you lose that ability to sort of like feed your curiosity, you completely lose it. It's a completely different way of thinking.
Yeah. Very good. Peter, what you got for us?
So I've got some data from Antenna that was featured on a Wall Street Journal article looking at how streaming services retain customers who sign up for major releases. So there's a couple charts here that, basically show these major releases from Disney Plus. That would be Hamilton. And it shows this spike in signups to Disney Plus when Hamilton was released. The chart is kind of hovering in this average range and then just a spike in signups for Hamilton. Then for HBO Max, their major release was Wonder Woman. And there's just this spike in signups for HBO Max when Wonder Woman was released. Similar for each one, it was about 400 plus thousand signups on those peak days. And then sort of what the analysis shows is what happens to those subscribers after the major releases. And it shows that after 6 months, only 50% of the customers who signed up during the major releases are still subscribers. So there's a drop off in 50% for people who sign up for those one-off major releases on the platforms. So basically what the study is showing is that it's hard to keep customers, but also, if you keep 50% of people who signed up for one of your movies, that's pretty good. I think there's some push and pull and some differences of opinions on how good a 50% retention is. Actually, what we talked about as a group is that if you can keep 50% of people who sign up for Hamilton and a ton of people sign up for Hamilton, that's pretty good, even if it is 6 months later.
Yeah, that's how I read the numbers when you said it. You said only 50%. I thought, actually, that's not bad, especially if you have a couple of hits one after the other. I would have thought the drop-off rate would have been much more significant. After 6 months as well is a pretty good stretch of time, especially considering that you can go month to month with pretty much every service at the moment. All right, very good. Oscar, what you got?
So there was a recent study I came across from the University of California, Berkeley, that, essentially sometimes people often accuse others of living in the past, but it turns out that everyone is actually living in the past and the study found by exactly 15 seconds. So they discovered that the human brain shows you images from 15 seconds in the past instead of trying to update your vision in real time. So it's kind of, it's really interesting, right? And it's just how the brain adapts to the fast-moving environment. So it's kind of just like a social media feed. The brain is constantly uploading new and rich visual stimuli. It could speak to the fact why, we were just talking about the smartphone and scrolling through things, and we just can't get away from it. So it provides new insights into what scientists called the mind's continuity field. So it's a function of perception where the brain merges with what our eyes see to provide a sense of stability, right? So if it wasn't for that, what they found is that things would actually appear to be blurry all the time. So thank God that the brain works in this way. So, It's really interesting stuff like that, right? But the delay is great. I mean, there are some bad things, of course, if we're seeing things in a bit of a lag, but the delay is great for things like preventing us from feeling, again, bombarded by visual input every day, but it can help with things like life or death situations that occur in the moment, even for surgeries. And there was mentions about radiologists and scanning for tumors and surgeons and being able to see things. So, of course, as we know, the body and the brain functions in a certain way because it needs to. It's essentially for our survival. So I just thought this study was super interesting.
Wow. So when I'm late to stuff, I can say to people, I got here a while ago. It's just your brain was taking a while to catch up.
About 15 seconds, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's just 15 seconds. All right, not 50. I could do it with 15 minutes, but all right, fair enough.
It's something.
That is fascinating. Yeah. Very nice. All right, I've got one really quick for you. Robo Umpires are coming. In a recent Axios article by Jeff Tracy, he notes that simple sleuthing all but confirms that the automated ball strike system, ABS, is coming to AAA in 2022 this year, after he found a job posting recruiting ABS techs in 11 AAA markets. How does ABS work? Well, it still requires a human umpire to stand behind the plate all game, and technology from Danish startup TrackMan determines if each pitch is a ball or a strike. ABS then feeds its call to the umpire via an earpiece, and he relays the call to the players. The ump will still make calls like check swings, interference, and plays at the plate. ABS simply eliminates guesswork from the strike zone. So Blake, as our resident baseball fan, I know that Oscar's a baseball fan as well. Peter, real baseball perhaps?
Yeah, I'm a baseball fan.
Okay, so we've got 3 baseball fans. So guys, how was you guys in the baseball community, most importantly former Weekly Listen staple Mark Dolliver, react to this change if it hits the major leagues?
I would say even, it's a shame that the Cowboys are America's favorite team, but baseball truly is America's pastime. And you can't upset tradition. I think even for the sake of accuracy, you got to let the umpires on the field, let them do their jobs. And if they're still going to be there and just you're eliminating balls and strikes, then what's the point of having this anyways?
Yeah, I disagree, Blake. I'm on the opposite side there of the argument. I think it's exciting. I'm all about accuracy, not so much of a traditionalist. Yeah, I just see this, potentially moving the game a little bit quicker. That's always been an issue. It's been an issue for a while. The game times on average seem to be getting longer and longer. So, and then just the accuracy and controversy on calls and things like this, we'll see hopefully less of that. I really hope that we can implement any sort of technology into all other sports too.
Hate it. I think a lot of people watch baseball because it's America's pastime and because it's tradition. And I think this is going to alienate so many baseball viewers. And there's this really interesting New Yorker article that I read a couple months back, and it put it in such a good way. It said that the umpire's strike zone is based on a dialogue that he has with the pitcher and each individual pitcher. And that's why it's this ever-changing zone. And the way that they talk about it makes it so much more interesting when there's a professional umpire officiating a game. So I really hate it.
Interesting. So the one thing I'll say quickly is at face value, I like the idea of accuracy, like the goal line technology they have when people are playing soccer. But when I think about it, I was thinking about this with basketball, and you can challenge certain calls now. And if, Blake's holding the ball and I knock it out of his hands and it goes out of bounds, conventional wisdom suggests it's Blake's ball because I knocked it out of his hands. But when you slow the video footage down of the play, you can see that actually, as I hit it out of his hands, it might have still just come off of his fingertips at the last possible second. So reviewing certain plays like that could change the whole concept of what we typically think as a very obvious call, which would be it's Blake's ball. So plus, I don't love it.
Would these robots know how many jerseys you sell for the NBA and thus determining how many steps you could take on your way to the basket without it being called travel? Exactly. I don't think so.
Well, that is all we've got time for this episode. Thank you so much to my guests. Thank you to Blake.
Thanks, everyone.
This week's winner of the Game of the Week. Thank you to Oscar.
Thanks for having me, Marcus.
Of course. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you to Victoria. She edits the show. Thanks to everyone listening. We hope to see you guys on Monday for the Behind the Numbers Daily and eMarketer podcast made possible by Mountain. Happy weekends. I think the answer is no, but just to check, do you guys even care about the scoring? There isn't any scoring. But I used to score you guys. Now I make no effort whatsoever to actually listen to what you're saying and give you merits. Give you scores based on merit.
We should absolutely keep this on the record. Put it on the podcast. The people need to know that it's been a sham.
I gave up a long time. Yeah, I gave up on that a very long time ago.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm recording this on my local and I can leak it to the audience.
Only Susie cares about the scoring after every round. I just like the surprise at the end, honestly.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. I just checking. Just wondered if you guys wanted the. So no.
But do I care? Absolutely not.
Okay. All right. I was just trying to make it fair for people.
Unless it was live scoring like Tony Reali on Part of the Interruption, where I can really track progress and keep momentum but no, I don't care.
It is live scoring.
But it's not, but we can't see it.
Well, I tell you after each round.
Oh yeah, I don't think it really matters.
Okay, just checking.
Just at the end, surprise us.
All right, so now the people can also hear, Blake, that I tried, but now I'm just going to make up the winner based on who I like the most. Okay.
Fair enough.